Welcome to By The Talons, where the Philadelphia Eagles season never ends.
The Eagles win, the Eagles win, the Eagles win! Troy Vincent has picked it up!
With your hosts, Dave Searles and George Kassakos.
Hello again, we are back for episode 3 of By The Talons. My name is Dave Searles here with George Kassakos, and while there hasn't been a ton of fresh Eagles news over the past couple of weeks, we are going to be talking to Jonny Page from Inside the Iggles on his thoughts on the offseason and a little bit of draft stuff because we are getting extremely close. So since we last spoke, Tim Tebow nearly signed a contract with Philadelphia. Actually, not quite. He only worked out with the team. George, do you have any thoughts on Tebow and his short time as a near Eagle?
Yeah, I think Chip Kelly said it in the best way. Like, he said it was just a workout, like they did with Terrell Pryor before and Thad Lewis. So I think it's nothing more than a workout. And yeah, it's a good thing that the media didn't make a very big deal out of it.
Yeah, I have to agree, especially because the rumor came from, or it came afterwards, that if the Eagles could trade Matt Barkley, they would sign Tim Tebow. Right off the bat, that tells me Matt Barkley is as good as gone because, no offense, but if you're looking to replace Matt Barkley with Tim Tebow, that doesn't really tell you too highly of thoughts between the Eagles and their impressions on Barkley. So, I mean, at that point, give me a call. I'm rusty and I haven't worked out in way too long, but I could probably still throw a 15-yard slant. We do have a departure to talk about, one that actually kind of hurts me because I really like this player. I think he got a bad rap in Philadelphia and was put into a bad situation early in his career. But Casey Matthews, a.k.a. brother of Clay Matthews, is no longer in Philadelphia. He signed a one-year deal with the Minnesota Vikings. I'm not a big fan of losing him. I don't think it's the end of the world. But he's just one of those guys I feel contributed more than it appeared to the fans' eyes, and you might actually see a little difference in performance on special teams without him.
Yeah, Casey just was a special team player for the Eagles and just a backup for the inside linebacker spot. But if you look at the roster right now, there are many options there. It's D'Amico Ryans, Michael Kendricks, Kiko Alonso, then we have Nazi Good, Emmanuel Lacho, and Brad Jones. And you also have Marcus Smith, who can also, play there. So yeah. I don't think the Eagles would have signed another guy to play the same spot or just special teams.
And we also forgot Travis Long coming off the injury, who is versatile at both inside and outside linebacker. Eagles really liked him, and he was actually the reason Casey Matthews made the team. Was because Long got injured. So, yeah, well, it looks like we're going to find out and see what he has this year, too.
Exactly. There are so many options at inside linebacker for the Eagles right now, and judging how Chip Kelly operates in free agency, it makes much sense to allow Casey Matthews to sign with a different team. Kelly always says that we like to give the best opportunities to our players to be on an NFL roster each season, and resigning Matthews to have him during training camp and preseason and then cut him, it's not the best option for him.
That's a really good point, and that's not something that I would have immediately thought of as far as giving him the best opportunity, which may be elsewhere, and it looks like it is, because there definitely is a crowded picture at inside linebacker. Real quick, I want to get your thoughts kind of now that free agency is slowing down. Free agency, how do you feel about it as it has now appeared to have shaken out? And should the Eagles have any more players on their radar?
That's a tough question. I mean, right now you don't see many news. And I think teams are always, having their eyes open and looking at free agent players. But I really don't think the Eagles are going to make any significant signings right now. I don't think there are many impact players still available. I don't know about you. I don't know if you have any specific name on your mind.
No specific names for me. I feel as if they may add a veteran offensive lineman to the picture. I don't see them adding a safety, strictly because the market is terrible for safeties. There is nobody that would make me feel good about adding at this point in time. I'd almost rather just let them roll into the season or to the draft with what they have and then give Jerome Copeland a shot against whoever they end up drafting, because I do think they will draft a safety. But I can't see them making any more signings. That doesn't mean there won't be any more acquisitions. I could see a trade or two, albeit a smaller trade. I don't see many blockbuster moves happening, but that's kind of all just what you think a blockbuster is. To me, if Brandon Boykin is traded, it wouldn't be a shock because I see it coming.
Yeah, let's move on to Eagles workouts. The Eagles have worked out some players the last 2 weeks. They've checked Nelson Aguilar from University of South California and Jalen Strong from Arizona State University. How do you feel about these two?
I love Nelson Aguilar. He's basically measurables everything. It's essentially a Jeremy Maclin clone. I don't think he's a first-round target, not by any stretch. I don't even know if he'll be available at 52 for the Eagles pick. That said, I think it's a good move to bring him in, and if he's on the board, he's a no-brainer in the second round for me. Jalen Strong, I don't have really too much of an opinion on. I don't think I would love that pick at 20, strictly because I feel like it's better at 20 to take a player who is higher up on their position rank, like getting the fourth best wide receiver at 20 or fifth best wide receiver, however you have him ranked, over the second best, outside linebacker or something of that nature. I don't want to dip too far into the well in the first round because there is such a deep class of wide receivers.
Yeah, I don't think the Eagles are going to draft a wide receiver in the first round unless it's a very good value pick. And Jalen Strong, as much as I love this guy, I've watched a lot of tape on him lately, and for me, he can definitely be the best wide receiver of this class in the future. And as far as it goes for Nelson Aguilar, I think it's hard for me to project him. I think he can be a late first round pick. He can be a mid second round pick. It depends on where he's on, its team's draft board. But I can definitely see him as a target for the Eagles. Outside of wide receivers, the Eagles also checked on Benedict McKinney from Mississippi State. Do you think inside linebacker is, that much of a need for the Eagles?
I don't think it's a need for the Eagles, as we just mentioned a couple of minutes ago. But I do think that McKinney could serve interest because he also has the size and potential. He's not quite there yet, but he could play snaps outside. And it seems like the Eagles are adding linebackers with that versatility of being able to go inside or outside for a couple of plays. Kiko Alonso has that trait. And it wouldn't surprise me to see the Eagles have significant interest in McKinney because you could have packages with Marcus Smith inside or outside, Alonso, McKinney, a lot of guys who could play different positions, and even Travis Long, as we mentioned.
Good point. I can see that because McKinney was lined up all over the place while playing for Mississippi State. But right now, I don't know if it's a player where the Eagles are worth taking, in the first couple of rounds. Probably other teams will have him rated higher than Philadelphia does. And we also had a couple of workouts of defensive backs. It was, if I'm not mistaken, Damarius Randall, safety.
Yes.
Exactly, from Arizona State University. Have you watched him?
Randall was somebody who I never really got around to seeing a lot of, and that's disappointing now that I find out he's an Eagles target. I want to know everything about him now. But the one thing I could say is strictly from an on-paper perspective, which means absolutely nothing when grading a player. He's not exactly the kind of size player I wanted. And yes, it sounds extremely basic fan, I guess you could say. But I want big, tall, long safeties.
I agree with you. I think he's much more of a, more traditional, let's say, type of safety. He's not the guy that you will trust him, as a center fielder. He might be very, very good as a cornerback, as a safety playing in a cover 2 or cover 4 seam, but I don't think he's the guy you want to leave, alone in the back end of your defense. We have one more workout, I think.
Yeah, Kevin Johnson from Wake Forest, the cornerback. This one kind of intrigues me because I don't know where the Eagles view him on their board. Kevin Johnson is one of those corners who could end up sneaking into the late first. Some already view him as a late first round prospect. I don't think he's an option at 20. I just can't see any way the board falls that says Kevin Johnson is the best player available to pick. But I wouldn't be opposed to adding him. He has good size, and I don't know if he would actually immediately start, but I do think he would be the front runner to compete with Walter Thurman. Yeah,
and also, I don't think if the Eagles are going after him, I don't think Brandon Boykin is, much longer on the roster, because it doesn't make sense to add a cornerback so early when you already have paid Byron Maxwell and Walter Thurman, and draft another guy who is a potential day one starter, and then you have 4 cornerbacks for 2 spots and potentially 3, because the Eagles don't like playing nickel much.
Well, it also could be a sign of Nolan Carroll, who stepped in last year in relief for Bradley Fletcher and did not impress. And it actually got to the point where the Eagles said, screw it, we're going to throw Jalen Watkins in there. And I like what I saw from Watkins. But Carroll and Boykin, this is a very, very important offseason for them. And I 100% feel that we will not see both in Philadelphia.
Yeah, let's move to the most interesting name of all. Kelly was at a Utah Pro Day, probably watching Eddie Rowe.
And I love Eric Rowe. Our guest from episode 1, Anthony DeBona, tweeted out or late last week, and he read my mind. I had the same thought when I woke up that morning, and then I thought it was funny. He saw him tweet it. He said, I wouldn't even be mad if the Eagles took Eric Rowe at 20. Completely agree. I love Eric Rowe. I love his game. I think he is absolutely what the Eagles fans are looking for at safety, as well as what the Eagles need at safety. He is a cornerback as well. He could play either, but I think he's more traditionally leaned towards filling the spot opposite Jenkins, because then he fills that role of the hybrid cover corner style safety.
Yeah, I haven't watched much of Eric Rowe, but I have read a lot about him, and I know a lot of people like his game, and he's been shooting up the draft boards. I don't know if I'd like him in the first round for the Eagles, but I definitely think he's worth spending a third round pick on him, or maybe a second round pick.
See, and I can understand where you're coming from with that, but I'm gonna throw a situation last year that was very reminiscent of where Eric Rowe is now, at least in my opinion. Last year, I was a big proponent of getting Deion Buchanan, who at the time before draft day was a second, early third round safety. He ended up going 27th to the Arizona Cardinals, and that's kind of how I see Rowe. He's going to be very much projected, second round, maybe early third, but there's going to be a team to bite between 26 and 32, if not before, just because of his measurable upside and lack of good safeties in this class.
Yeah, maybe. I'm still not confident in these moves, because the Eagles have a bad history of, drafting earlier than they should safeties in the second round. And,
Well, then solve that problem and take him in the first. No, I'm kidding. But as far as the Deion Buchanan comparison goes, it's a much better natural fit than Buchanan would have been.
Well, if they trade down and manage to get another pick, probably in the third round, I wouldn't hate it if they drafted Rowe in late first. But I still need to watch him much more in the future.
Real quick, before we get to our guest, Jonny Page from Inside the Iggles, who kindly joins us to talk some football, we have a couple questions from the By The Talons mailbag we want to get to. So, George, I'm going to ask you first. Blaine Grizak from Twitter and Inside the Iggles as well has a question. He says, trading up for Marcus Mariota, Oregon quarterback, has been talked about quite a bit. But what about trading up to around the 10th to 12th pick for one of the top 3 wide receivers, Kevin White, Devontae Parker, or Amari Cooper?
It's not something I would hate. I really like White and Cooper. Not so much Parker, but I think if the Eagles feel like they need to upgrade that wide receiver and it's very important to them, I can see it happening. Kelly has shown that he knows no boundaries when it comes to executing his plan. So I think there is a possibility. If someone like Cooper or White is available around 10 or 12, I can see the Eagles trading up, and it wouldn't surprise me.
Next question we have from I Bleed Green 24/7. Who are your top 5 targets for the Eagles if they stay at the 20th pick?
Right now, number 1 is probably Jake Fisher. We've talked about him in the previous episode too. I think he's a guy that belongs to the first round discussion. Maybe not so much about pick number 20, but he could start immediately at right guard. He really projects very well as a guard in the NFL. I also have Jalen Strong, the wide receiver from ASU. Trey Waynes, I don't know if he's gonna be there. I think probably not. Alvin Dupree from Kentucky, and Eric Kendricks, the linebacker from UCal.
Yeah, my list is very similar to yours, and it's kind of creeping me out a little bit, especially our long shot. My long shot pick is Trey Waynes. My first pick was Jake Fisher. I also really like Pittsburgh tackle TJ Clemmings as a guy who can play some guard for the Eagles as well. Eric Rowe, as we just talked about, I would not mind him at all in the first round. And my last pick would be Shaq Thompson. The inside linebacker moves that they've made, they don't need Thompson, but if they add him, I'm not going to be disappointed.
Yeah, it's exactly like Eric Kendricks.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's not a position of need, but yeah.
Right now, we are joined by Jonny Page from Inside the Iggles. We're going to talk some football. So, Johnny, how's it going, buddy? Thanks for joining us By The Talons.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Not a problem. We are psyched to have you. So, this has been a little bit of a slow time in Eagles newsland. First, I just want to talk a little bit about a recap of what we've seen so far. What was your favorite move, be it just from a scheme fit perspective or just a move that you really love that the Eagles have made this offseason?
All right. Well, my move's quite a boring move, really. It's probably re-signing Brandon Graham, keeping our own guys. I think he was excellent last year, and he probably should have played more, if I'm being honest. So getting him back next year, letting him start, which would be good to see him play more snaps. I think he's good enough to start. So I'm excited to see him play a lot more. And also, the Maxwell signing is probably a close second because we need cornerbacks.
Absolutely. With the Graham re-signing, did that surprise you at all? Because it seemed as if he might have been on his way out to New York, and honestly, I didn't think it was a given he would re-sign, just because. But not only was he a reserve for most of his time here, but we all know how he feels about the fans on Twitter. It was kind of surprising to see him stick around. Did you feel that, or was it kind of more natural for you?
Yeah, I thought he'd get more money. I was surprised that no one offered him more. I thought if I was a 4-3 team, like I think the Bengals really needed a pass rusher, I'd have given him more money. But I had quite a lot of debates on Twitter with people, and a lot of people didn't think he'd be coming back. But I was slightly confident that I thought we'd want him. I just thought he'd choose more money. But end of the day, no one out there was willing to give it to him, so I think we got a really good deal.
Let's talk about your least favorite move. I know everyone is trying to stay positive, but there has to be something that happened along the way that you didn't really understand or like that the Eagles did.
All right, well, I got two really, but then things that we didn't do. We didn't sign a safety, which I massively think we really should have. And obviously losing Jeremy Macklin, which is not at all good. We have a huge need at receiver now. As sad as I am to lose Macklin, I don't think he's worth the money he got from the Chiefs. But maybe it's our fault for not signing him last year. I've been thinking about this actually, and I've decided that we should never give anyone a 1-year deal. Because giving anyone a 1-year deal in our offense is a terrible idea. Unless it's the last choice, if you give someone a 1-year deal, you can almost guarantee that they're going to put up career numbers in our offense. And then they're going to get paid more than they're probably worth. So, I don't know if we could
I could see that, but Macklin wanted the 1-year deal. I mean, we
can't
forget that.
There's lots of talk. It's difficult, isn't it? But if we'd offered it, again, it's all hypotheticals, but if we'd offered him, say, $9 million a year last year, obviously it's a risk, and we're giving him a multi-year deal with that money, I tend to think he would have taken it. But again, we can't be sure.
I definitely think it's safe to assume he would have been interested in that offer. But if that move happened last year, I think we actually had the same argument on Twitter. So it's actually kind of fun to do it here. But if you offer him $9 million at that point, coming off the injury, I think the fans would have exploded in confusion.
Well, we're paying Bradford. How much are we paying Bradford? Is it 12, 13?
Hey, let's make sure he's on the team in August and September.
Oh, he will be.
So now that free agency is effectively over, I agree with you that they still have some needs left that they did not fill in the way that I would have liked. I want you to order the following positions from most important to least important on the remaining needs of the team. Offensive guard, wide receiver, safety, cornerback, inside linebacker, and outside linebacker.
All right. So I think the biggest need is definitely safety. Although receiver is a hole, I think is a need. I think we can scheme that. Safety, I don't really have any idea what we're going to do. I really think we should assign someone. The biggest problem I have is what we need in a safety is obviously pretty much impossible. You're trying to get someone that can centre field and also play man in the slot, which is there's not many out of college that can do that. And also, if Jenkins goes down, the depth we have is appalling. I mean, we're trying to rebuild the secondary, but if we lose Jenkins and our starting safeties next year are Watkins and Wolf, that's going to be awful. And also, I think when you got Maxwell, as much as I like him, he's used to having a good safety behind him, as we all know. Right. So I think you want to try and keep him comfortable. If we're going to try and play a similar scheme, I think that centre field has got to be really good because you don't want to leave both our cornerbacks on an island. I'm not really that impressed with Earl Wolf either. I know a lot of people like him. He's athletic, but in the small amount I've seen him play, I'm not really sure he's starting calibre. And then I'd go wide receiver because we lost Macklin, obviously. I like Jordan Matthews, but I think he's much more suited to the slot than to play outside. I think a lot of his yards last year was a scheme getting him open. I'm not really sure he beat man coverage much. I think when you watched us play the Seahawks, I think that was probably Maxwell's best game last year. He really shut Matthews down. It was kind of like once Matthews loses that height advantage and he's playing someone in the man coverage from the slot who's as big as him, but I think he loses that. Huff's not bad. I like him as an athlete, but he had a lot of drops last year on minimal targets. So I'd probably put safety first and wide receiver second. Then what we got? We got offensive guard. It's probably a toss-up between offensive guard and outside linebacker for me, but I'd probably say guard just because at the moment we've got Barbara, who I guess will start at right guard. And of course, if Mathis leaves, then I'd probably put guard above receiver because I'm a huge Mathis fan, as I think everyone is. I don't know why we'd possibly get rid of Mathis. I know he's old, but I think at least one more year.
Out of the last remaining positions, where do you think those stack up? Inside linebacker?
I put outside linebacker, just not because starter-wise. I like Graham and Barwin, but we haven't seen anything out of Marcus Smith. Travis Long is coming. Was it an ACL we done? So they really have no depth. And I guess they could move Kiko Alonso to outside linebacker as a last resort, but he's more of an inside linebacker. He doesn't have great bend. Then I'd probably put cornerback next, just because get as many cornerbacks as you can. You don't know if Furman's what he's going to be like. You don't know what Carroll's going to be like. Even Maxwell, obviously he's going to be starting, but if he goes down, you've got no one behind him. And then inside linebacker is definitely my last need. I don't think it will be a need at all. I know there's some rumours about Kendricks going, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think we'll keep all three. I think D'Amico Ryans is such a big leader in that locker room that I don't think Chip wants to lose him. And he mentioned about Kendrick's health in his last press conference and said about how he was injured a lot, even though he was only injured 4 games. But he obviously feels like you can't maybe rely on him for 16 games. And then as you got Kiko Alonso coming off that ACL, I think it makes sense to keep all 3 of them. I don't know if you heard, was it Cedric Thornton on the Bleeding Green Nation podcast last week? And he was saying about how important D'Amico Ryans is in that locker room. And it was when I listened to that I thought, I can really see why we didn't pay him. I had quite a few debates on Twitter. I know that he's obviously getting paid, I think it's 6.5 million. But you got Kendricks on your rookie salary and Alonso on his rookie salary. So if you total up the 3 of them, I assume it's about 8 or 9 million. So you're not really paying that much for them as a group. So if you look at it that way, it makes sense to keep 3 of them.
I can see it from that standpoint. I will never disagree that Ryans is a fantastic leader. It's strictly when you look at the player's salary to upside, like what we can expect from them this year, because obviously Ryans is coming off a major injury. Not that young. I understand with the group of them, it still isn't very costly if you're looking at it as you get 3 for the price of 1, essentially. But that's the issue I have with Ryans, and that maybe Kendricks is on the move because the Eagles may not want to pay him a major multi-year deal. But then, to me, that says, okay, you lose Kendricks, that's fine. You have Alonso, who's, if all things go well, he's going to start for quite a while. If you keep Ryans, you still need, then, a second inside linebacker to start. And I don't know if there's anyone on the roster. I mean, Najee Good coming back. Travis Long, maybe. We just lost Casey Matthews to Minnesota. I don't see that there's someone who can step up if in the event Ryans isn't ready. Just a big risk, that's all.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if we only keep 2. It's funny, I wrote an article about 2 months ago, and I had inside linebackers as the second biggest need. I wasn't actually that big of a fan of D'Amico Ryans last year. Although he's a leader, I do think it shows with his play now that he is getting on a bit. But we're bringing in Kiko Alonso. Now you've got 3, it's fine. But yeah, if they get rid of Kendricks, then it'd be quite a high need again. I don't think you can play D'Amico as a 3-down linebacker anymore.
Yeah, all right. But we haven't talked, quarterback at all. Like, it's a solved situation, no problem. And let me give you a small background check. Johnny and I started looking at Jameis Winston and Marcus Mariota at the same time, around the end of January. And I remember Johnny, who was the one who worked Mariota first, came up with a lot of question marks about his game. And Johnny, I know you haven't been a very big fan of Mariota so far. So do you think Sam Bradford is actually the Eagles quarterback moving forward?
Yeah, so I actually think Bradford will be the quarterback next year. At the time of the trade, I said on Twitter that I thought Bradford would be the guy. And as you can imagine, I got a lot of messages kind of saying like, no way. And then it came out that we gave the Rams a 2nd-round pick. And suddenly people were thinking, hang on a minute, maybe he is going to be the guy. I can't say I watched a lot of Bradford before the trade, but a lot of people on Twitter, a lot of draft experts, were saying about how similar the Oklahoma offense was, how he played under similar concepts. He was very good in a no-huddle offense. And when I heard all that, I thought this would be such a chip move to go and get a quarterback who's barely played the last 2 years. He was like the number 1 pick who's played in a similar offense. It made too much sense to me. I wouldn't say I'm not a fan of Mariota. I like him. I like him as a prospect. He's probably got about a mid-first round grade for me. So he's a first rounder. But there's a big difference between drafting him if I've got the 10th pick and he falls to me, and trading up from 20 into the top 5. There's so many question marks about him, in my opinion anyway. I don't think it's just as easy as drafting him and then running the exact same offense that he ran. I don't think you can do that. It's actually other questions I have with him is his general throwing accuracy. I don't like his intermediate to deep throws. I know that the stats show that he throws deep well, but a lot of their receivers are so wide open when they're running downfield. You don't see him make the throws that someone like Winston does. As you know, I'm more of a fan of his.
Yeah. Do you think some of these, question marks about Mariota will go away if he's drafted by the Eagles?
No, I don't think they'll go away if anyone drafts him. It's down to him to develop. I don't think he's there yet. As far as in the bowl game, that was the game I was most impressed by him. Not the one where he played Winston, the FSU game. I thought he made a lot more anticipation throws there. He got through his reads, but in some other games you just don't see it. So he has to learn to do that at an NFL level. People won't be as open as they were in college. So I don't think that it's not really a knock on him. It's unfair criticising him because he ran his offense perfectly. He done everything he was asked to do. So I do like him as a prospect. And if he falls anywhere near where we pick, then obviously I expect us to go for it, and I'd be really happy if we do. But there was a big difference to me about giving up that much to go and get someone when it is the draft and you know what these quarterbacks are going to be like.
Okay, then let me ask you, assuming that the Eagles stay put at 20th overall, which of the following 3 players would you pick if they are available? And it's ASU wide receiver Jalen Strong, LSU cornerback Jalen Collins, and Oregon offensive lineman Jake Fisher.
Quite an easy question for me because I'm a really, really big fan of Jalen Strong. I have him as my 3rd receiver at the moment, behind Cooper and White. I think he's better than Devontae Parker. I think he'd be perfect in this offense. His big issue is route running when you watch him on tape. But I think we can hopefully scheme around that because he's so good in contested catches. He's so good with contested situations. I try and grade receivers on like traits, and ball skills wise, I have him behind only Kevin White. I think he's the 2nd best there is at that. Behind him, I'd probably take Jake Fisher. I haven't watched a ton of him, but I know athletically he fits the profile really well. I think I'd probably start him at right guard, and then I guess you hope that Lane Johnson will eventually move to left tackle, and you can put Fisher at right tackle, which would be really nice to be able to do in a couple of years. And then Jalen Collins is an interesting guy to me. I think he's played 10 starts. He's got really good length. He's got great size. He's fast. I think he's more of a straight line athlete though. He's not really as fluid as I'd like. So I wouldn't be opposed to taking him at 20, but for a guy who's played, I think 10 games at cornerback, I think it's a bit too high for me. I'd rather trade back and see if you can get him in the late 1st or ideally in the 2nd, but I don't think that's likely to happen. So yeah, I'd probably say Strong 1 and then Fisher and then Collins.
Dave, what about you?
Honestly, Jake Fisher for me, and that's strictly because I do like Jalen Strong, but I think that BPA or even just draft targeting in general should always be somewhere in the middle between value, need, and position. And I feel like Jake Fisher is the perfect one for all 3. He can still step in immediately, but the Eagles will need him at his playing position in college in a couple of years when Jason Peters is on the way out. It makes too much sense to ignore with the perfect fit. And to me, it's just a no-brainer, even if it may be a little high compared to be where he was graded by most mock drafters and media a couple of weeks ago. We saw the same thing happen with Kyle Long, kind of shoot up out of nowhere. And I think we could see the same thing happen again with Fisher.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I also love Jalen Strong. Generally, me and Johnny have a lot of common opinions on players. And I do think he will be a very good fit for the Eagles. I don't think his route running is that much of an issue. What's the weakest point of his, in my opinion, is that he doesn't fully extend at high point to catch the ball. He doesn't use all his length ideally. But I think he's also very young. He's 21, if I'm not mistaken, and that means he has 1 or 2 more years to improve than other wide receivers have in this draft.
When I watched him, I didn't see that issue with his extension, but I think I'll go back and watch him now, seeing as you said that. Yeah, I thought his route running wasn't bad. He was just a lot better on deep routes, but I guess what the Eagles need is someone that can take the top of a defense. Although he's not strictly the kind of receiver that will take a top of a defense. If you have him on one side, Huff on the other side, and then you've still got Matthews in the inside, I think it's a lot better than what we're looking at the moment with Cooper, Huff, or maybe even Matthews on the outside. But I'm really not a fan of playing Matthews on the outside. I think I'd rather keep him in the slot.
All right, that was Jonny Page from Inside the Eagles. Thank you so much for taking your time to join us, and we can't wait to have you on again here soon.
Dave, let me ask you at this point, how does it feel to be the only guy on the other side of the Atlantic talking about the Eagles?
It feels like freedom. Long live America.
All right. So this was episode 3 of By The Talons. Don't forget to Follow us on Twitter at By The Talons and at Dave Searles and at Greek_QB for the latest Eagles talk and generally draft talk now that the NFL draft is approaching us. The next episode will take a little bit longer to come out. So if you have any questions or comments, just send them on Twitter. Thanks for listening. See you next time.